across the ring. Their opponents in the blue corner, Don Sanders and Glen Holbrook.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored today to have with me today the wrestler and current trainer at KPW here in Bahrain, Glen Holbrook. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, and it's an honor to be here today and to get a chance to get some word out and talk to the Bahraini fans.
That's great. We were talking earlier, and I am just fascinated. You came very prepared with books and good books, to be honest. I'm going to pick one up and read it. But before we get started, you know, it was a coincidence that when we decided on the date that tomorrow's WrestleMania, I completely forgot that this week was WrestleMania week. So it's very appropriate for a wrestling interview.
Absolutely. You know, that's the biggest night of the year in the States for professional wrestling. And it's something else. It's been going on for a long time now.
Okay. We've been talking. So do you keep up with the current wrestling?
Some, not as much as I would like to. I'm afraid life happens and the times they put it on, I'm just busy. I catch up when I can. I get 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there. But I've got a couple of nights a week tied up with my guys, with the KPW guys, which is, I really enjoy spending my time with them. I hear them talking about wrestling a lot. I know they stay current, and I try to, but it's not always possible.
Okay. So that's the thing, the timing over here, early morning, like early 3 a.m. Anyway, we've been talking, and you've mentioned tell me about the people that you watch now recently. Who are some of your favorites? We've talked about one just now.
Well, the guy I saw recently that really impressed me was in AEW, and his name's Dax Harwood. I watched him in a match with Jack Perry. They call him Jungle Boy, and that's what a match in professional wrestling today should look like. Dax has been around, I think, 13, 12, 14 years, and he's a seasoned veteran, and he took a guy that's very athletic and very talented, who hasn't been around nearly as long as him, and put him through a match that was just great. If somebody doesn't push that Dax to the moon, then shame on you, because you're not doing your job as a promoter.
Yeah, I love Dax. I love FDR, both of them, and Dax is really, really good. For a tag guy, to have a singles match like that was just great.
Yeah, and the fact that he had the cardio to do that, because tag wrestlers, I was a tag wrestler a lot. So, when I get tired, I'm out.
So I want to talk about your history, because I kind of searched and researched, but, I wanted to hear from you. So I got a few things, but like every wrestling fan, when did it start? Can you pinpoint a point where you were like, oh my God, what is this? Like, you come from Georgia, a wrestling state. A big wrestling state back in the 80s, and it was a territory on its own. So how did it start your fascination with wrestling?
When I was young, we only had 4 TV channels, and so there wasn't a lot of choices. And for me, the first time I saw wrestling, I saw these larger-than-life men, and I heard this loud noise in the ring, and it looked like, wow, what's going on here? At the end of the show, they left me to a point where I wanted to see more. So I came back the next week, and pretty soon I was hooked. So, my mom and dad were so good to me, just a blessed childhood. Every time they had that, that show came close to the high school gym or wherever, they always made sure I had a little money in my pocket and I got to go. But the big night for me was the Omni in Atlanta, which was an 18,000 seat arena. It was in 1974, and it was the first time I'd been to a big show. And all the stars from the territories were there. It was just something else, and the thrill of hearing that crowd was it. After that, I was hooked. I knew that's what I was going to do for a living. Done. In high school, my freshman year, the principal said he was coming through all the homerooms and asked what we're going to be. I told him I'm a professional wrestler. He said, "Boy, I hope you got it." He looked at me, he smiled, he said, "Okay, but I hope you got a backup plan."
That's good. So that was when, early on, you decided that's what I want to do.
I wanted to be one of those guys.
Okay, so how did you start training then, and where did you find the trainers? And
well, actually,
how hard was it to find a trainer?
Back then, it was a lot harder than today. There wasn't a lot of wrestling schools or anything. Vern Gagne did a camp every year. I think Larry Sharp and Killer Kowalski had schools that were thousands of miles away from my house. But I was working at a gym, and I had a friend there who was friends with a old retired professional wrestler. His name was Daryl Cochran. And he had agreed to train him. His name's Mike Dare. Mike, very underrated talent, great wrestler, didn't make to the big shows and stuff, but a lot of guys from the territory days didn't. Mike's a real good, talented guy. Loved watching him work too. So Frank agreed to, or Daryl, I'm sorry, agreed to train Mike, but he needed somebody else. So Mike drug me along. And it really wasn't training, so to speak. He put us in a boxing ring and kind of put the hurt on us a little bit.
But that's the old-fashioned way, I guess. He
wanted to see if we'd stick around. And after about, 2.5, 3 months of taking these heinous beatings from this old fat man who I thought I could whip, which was so far from the truth. Never judge a book by its cover if you're talking about pro wrestling, or you will find yourself embarrassed in the ring. So he handed me a slip of paper with a phone number on it and said, call this guy. And that was Jerry Oates. And when I looked at it and saw the name on it, I had Jerry Oates' autograph I got when I was in 3rd grade, and I still had it in my house on a program. And Jerry and Ted Oates were a tag team from Georgia, and they were just magic in the ring.
And their lineage alone was really good because they were trained by Dick Steinborn.
Yes, and Steinborn was considered one of the premier workers of his era.
And Steinborn was a 2nd generation. His father was a grappler, so Milo, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that alone, those two guys, you were in really good hands.
And the other thing was, Jerry Oates was really underrated at how good he was in the ring. He was just amazing. He's a big guy, 6'4" maybe, 250 pounds, but cat-like quickness, agile, strong, but so good technically, just amazing. And I'll always be thankful that I spent time with Jerry and Ted Oates, because without them, I don't think that I was a smaller guy, only weighed about 200 pounds, so they weren't really interested in me at first. I don't think if I hadn't got that technical knowledge from them that anybody would have shown any interest in me at all.
How long did you train with them?
Well, when I got there, they said, we'll have you in a match in probably about 6 months. And it was about 7 weeks later.
What?
So I was like, whoa, did I get a crash course? Are they just trying to get rid of me or what? But luckily, it just seemed to kind of flow for me. Jerry's such a good instructor and such a good trainer. And everybody that worked out with him and trained with him were great. There's a gentleman in Columbus, Georgia by the name of Greg Brown. Greg Brown was a guy that went around the local area in Georgia and stuff. But if you ever saw him wrestle, you would just be amazed. He was fantastic in the ring. Don Sanders was another guy from that gym who was a regional guy who was just fantastic. But everybody Jerry trained, Marty Jannetty, they were all fantastic wrestlers. So I got to train with guys that wrestled like seasoned veterans when they were still, had only been in the business a couple of years. And it was just great. But Jerry is the reason I had any success at all. Without him and Randy, I gotta say, and Randy Rhodes and Yoshi Kayatsu, without those guys, I wouldn't have had much of a career at all.
Okay, so what year would have been you?
1984.
Training?
I started training in '84.
Okay.
And
7 weeks later.
7 weeks later, shit, I'm on. Oops, sorry. And shoot, I'm on TV, and I'm like, well, of course, I'm not, having great matches yet. And
the best match you can get in 7 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I was getting jobbed out on television, which is your job. That's what you do. That's how you learn. We called it paying your dues. You learn respect for the business, and you really appreciate the fact that you get your hand raised when you've been on the other side of that for months and months at a time. So we called it paying your dues, and that's how you earn the respect of the veterans. You get out there, you pay your dues. Look, I saw Jake Roberts when he was doing jobs on television. I saw Rick Rude when he was doing it. A lot of guys. Now, don't get me wrong, neither one of them did them very long because they were just such unique talents. But so after I had my first couple of matches, Ann Gunkel had opened up All South Championship Wrestling again. She had owned it with her husband, Georgia Championship Wrestling, or Capital Sports, I think is what it's called, back in the 70s. And then he passed away and she lost her territory. Ran All South for a couple of years, went out of business, and she came back. And when she came back, I was lucky enough to be teamed with a gentleman by the name of Les Freeman from Florida. Good amateur wrestler. The girls love this guy, man. I mean, he's just he's something else. A class act, wonderful tag team partner, friend. Just class act in professional wrestling. Great guy. He should have been one of the guys that got pushed to the moon.
That's what I like about regional wrestler. You have all these regional superstars that some of them may have ventured out, but some of them really stayed and they were still popular. And people maybe to this day remember them just by virtue of seeing them on shows or on TV.
Sure. And we had another guy that was really, if it wasn't for the Superstation going nationwide, he was really a regional wrestler, but he was an amazing talent and drew every single place he ever went. And that was Tommy Rich. Tommy Rich could have been huge. He was huge, but I mean, he could have wrestled anywhere in the world, and he chose to stay home. I mean, his family was there, his house was there. He liked the short trips. So more power to him. He still had an amazing career. He's still an NWA champion. I don't care if he didn't hold the belt for years. He held it for a week or two. Who cares? Tommy Rich was fantastic. And had he gone anywhere else in the nation, he would have got over in every single territory. There's not a one where he wouldn't have been a top babyface.
Do you remember who your first match was against?
Yes. Randy Rose and Doug Summers in a tag match. And it didn't last long.
Well, you were in the ring with Randy Rose, so that must have been a spectacle, something to watch.
Well, it was a pretty one-sided event. But the thing was, I got to meet Randy later on, and when he was working for All South, Randy helped me immensely because they didn't have a crew doing a lot of stuff that some of the other companies did. So he said, "Hey, you come, you help me set up the ring, and I'll work out with you." And so now you're getting a crash course in how to be a heel from one of the Midnight Express. Come on, you can't pay for that kind of knowledge. Randy was really good to me. He's doing well. He's after he retired, he opened his own business. He got married. He's doing great. In fact, my brother-in-law did some business with him. He installs the lifts for cars. He owns a company that does the hydraulic lifts, and he did one for my brother-in-law. And he gave me his phone number, so I got to call him and say hello. And he's just doing great. And like I said, to get to ride with him and listen to him talk, and then get in the ring with him every day, even if it wasn't that long. But then to have him stand at the entrance of the dressing room and watch your match, and then come in, and it wasn't always good, but to get feedback, which is what you need. In wrestling, you need honest feedback, because if you do something that doesn't look good and the fans kind of go, if you don't hear it, then you don't know. But I didn't have to listen for them, because Randy would tell me in the locker room about the time I was 2 feet from the door. So I really appreciated him. Mike Golden helped me out a lot, another heel. And man, just everybody. And until I got to Japan, then it just changed.
Heels are full of love and knowledge. That's
the nicest guys in the dressing room.
We talked earlier about another member of the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton. How underrated is Bobby Eaton?
One of the best. Bobby Eaton, one of the best tag wrestlers. If he had looked like Rick Rude or one of those guys, he'd have been the biggest star in the business. Bobby Eaton, I've never seen in a bad match. I've never seen him do a move that didn't look fantastic. The guy was, 6'3", 6'4", 255 pounds. He was going off the top rope then. I mean, you got these guys doing it now, and everybody goes, wow. Bobby Eaton was doing it then at 255. I mean, just what a talent. That guy, anytime I could find him on YouTube, that's the guy I would show the guys and say, watch this guy. Watch him. I tell them, if you want to be a tag wrestler and you just want to learn good wrestling, watch Bobby Eaton.
Just Bobby, not the whole package with the Midnight.
Oh, well, any of the Midnight Express, but especially Bobby. He was just a special talent. If they're going to be a baby face, I say, if you want to learn how to really get the fans behind you and know when to fight back and when to make the comeback, I always tell them, watch Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express. Man, that's another underrated talent.
That's still going on to this day.
He's got, hey, at my age, I know he's older than me, so if he can still do it, he's a blessed man, and it's because he's taking care of himself.
Sure. Before we get to KPW, when they announced you, they had a list of promotions that you worked for. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go through the promotions and just tell me briefly, how was it over there and some of the guys you faced over there? So let's start with the NWA first.
Well, the NWA was a conglomerate of all the promotions. I would say one of the ones I really enjoyed is working at Continental Championship Wrestling for the Fullers.
Oh, with the Tennessee Stud himself, Ron Fuller.
Ron was there. Robert was there. You had the Armstrongs, all of them. But Brad was there as well. Another underrated and talented guy. The Nightmares, Johnny and Tommy Rich were there. Who else? I was Dirty White Boy Tony Anthony, Tom Pritchard, Mike Golden, just all the talent in one spot. That's where Arn Anderson got his break. That's where he got. And I
think even Hogan was in Continental.
Hogan came through Continental as well because he's a Florida boy. So he started in Florida Championship Wrestling, Georgia Continental, and then he made his way to Vern and boom.
Speaking of Vern, what about the AWA?
I worked for them because they decided to come down south and do a summer thing. So Jerry Blackwell, who was an AWA regular up in Minnesota.
Who was a Sheik, I think, at the time, or at one point of his career.
Oh, one point he was. Yeah, he ain't no Sheik. He's a good old boy from Georgia. Big talented guy, too. That's a 400-pound man would throw a drop kick and get you in the chin.
And was never in the WWE. Can you imagine?
Never.
He was so talented. I watch his videos on YouTube. He's so good.
You ever see him when he takes the spike and headbutts it through a 2x4? Yeah, that had to be painful. But so Jerry's running the AWA, and they're sending a crew down, which included the champion at the time was Kurt Hennig, Nick Bockwinkel, Adrian Street was working for him. They sent the Russians, I think it was Boris Zukov, and I'm not sure who the other one was. It's been a long time. Guys, if you get hit with metal chairs a lot, your memory will start to fade. So who else? That was pretty much the crew, and then there was some locals, some of the Southern guys. They used gentleman Ken Timms, Mike Golden, me, Greg Brown, the guy I mentioned, Jerry Oates. So there was kind of a mix of the AWA North talent and then the Southern talent down there. And it was a lot of fun. It didn't, it was just one summer and then it was done, but it was good. It kept me busy until I went back to Florida.
And what about the UWF? You worked for Bill Watts. Cowboy.
Bill Watts. Best television producer in the history of professional wrestling.
That's good to hear. In 2021.
Bar none. Bill Watts was so good at doing TV. He left you on the edge of your seat, waiting for the next thing to happen, and that show went off. And you had to wait. You watched your watch. When is Saturday coming back? I want to see what happens. He was just fantastic. Hard man to work for, very demanding, but Bill Watts paid well. So he expected you to live up to the pay he gave you. And but I heard stories where he was pretty rough on some of the guys. And for me, I wasn't top talent, so just as long as I didn't mess up in my match, I'm okay. Get out there and do my little thing, But such a great mind for professional wrestling. And it was kind of a shame when UWF, I think they were bought actually by Crockett's, by Jim Crockett. When that went under, I was that's one of the ones that hit me when I realized wrestling was going to change and change forever. And like I said, Bill, that MidSouth Wrestling and then UWF was probably the best program on television.
Wow, that's really something good to hear in 2021.
Yeah,
it held the test of time, I guess.
Love that show. He had such a talented crew. You got to remember when I was think of this. Think of this for a card: Ted DiBiase, Jake the Snake Roberts, Hacksaw Jim Dugan, Junkyard Dog. Who else? You had
one of the greatest managers, Skandar Akbar.
Skandar Akbar was fantastic, but they also had Hacksaw. Did I say Hacksaw Jim Dugan? Was there? Dr. Death Steve Williams, and then other guys coming in and out. I mean, I think the tag teams.
The second iteration of the Midnight started there with Cornette.
Yeah, Cornette's got a good. That's where they got a good push there. And then who else was there when I was there? Oh, the tag team they were pushing in was the Zambuis, was
Kamala and
Kareem Muhammad, which is Ray Canby from Georgia. Nice guys too, both of them. Gentle giants. Them big guys could have hurt you if they wanted to, but that wasn't how they did business.
In the red corner, General Skandar Akbar presents Kamala, the Ugandan warrior. And his team partner at 406 pounds, Kareem Muhammad, the Zambui Express. And across the ring, their opponents in the blue corner, Don Sanders and Glen Holbrook.
Random question about Sultan Akbar, since we mentioned him. You're in Bahrain, you've been in the Middle East. How does the image of Sultan Akbar relate to the people you see here?
I think the people here are much friendlier than he was. He hated all of us. He hated Americans. He was there to take over professional wrestling. But he did a great job as a manager, and he was big in Texas too.
Yeah,
they should have took him up. Vince could have done a lot with him.
Yeah,
He chose
this is the surprising thing, because I started watching wrestling. I was very young in the 90s, and then you didn't have much Arabic wrestlers other than whatever Sergeant Slaughter and the Iron Sheik did. But the Iron Sheik is Iranian, but he loves the Arab gimmick. But to find out in the 80s and 70s, there were a lot of wrestlers with the Arabian Sheik gimmick. Skandar was first a wrestler, then a manager. So, and we mentioned Jerry Blackwell. He became a Sheik for a while.
Yeah,
he was a heel with Adnan Al-Qaisi, and I was shocked that Hercules was also Sheik Hercules for a while, and I think in UWF MidSouth as well.
And then you also had the original Sheik, Ed Farragut.
Yeah.
And he was over as a talent for decades. He scared people. They were afraid of him.
Yeah, that's good. Last one. Okay, you mentioned CCW. This promotion I've never heard of before, so I was surprised and shocked when I Googled and I saw Cactus Jack and a few famous wrestlers. IWA Japan. First of all, what got you to Japan in the first place, and why did you decide to wrestle there as well?
Well, I had taken a job and I was actually living in Japan. And one of the guys there was from Tennessee, and he was a wrestler. And they said, "Hey," his name was Deuce Mason. He said, "Deuce," and they pointed at me and said, "This one wrestled too, And he after work we sat around and talked a little bit. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to do a show. Why don't you come with me?" And I said, "Okay." And I wasn't in great shape at the time. I had slimmed down a lot because instead of wrestling, I was doing martial arts. So, I didn't need the extra weight. It's hard on your knees, hard on your back. So I'd slimmed down to about 205. And I went to one of the shows, and boom, I carried a book that had some old photos and stuff in them. And they said, "You're a wrestler too?" And I said, "Yeah, it's been a little bit, but yeah, I'd still like to work some." And I don't know, about 3/4 of the way through the show, one of the guys who spoke English, there's only about 3 of them, came over and said, "Next show, you're on the card." They didn't even see me work. So I was like, yay. But that was for a company called SPWF, which was run by Yoshikai Yatsu. And Yatsu was a 2-time national champion. He wrestled WWF, New Japan, All Japan, SWS, all of them. But IWA Japan was actually owned by Victor Quiones from Puerto Rico. And so when they came over, it's Deathmatch City. They got Cactus Jack. They got Terry Funk. They got Terry Gordy, whom I love to death.
Bam Bam.
Bam Bam, man, what a great 320 pounds work like that. Shoot. That's another good guy for people to watch. If you're a bigger guy and you want to see how a big man wrestles, watch Terry Gordy. And they had some of the Japanese guys. They had Tarzan Goto, who speaks English. He's married to an American, and super nice guy. Great wrestler back in the day. And they had Nakamaki, who was actually a sports journalist who got into wrestling later in life, and he was really over with the crowd. And so it's just a good crew. And by this time, Yatsu had given me a really nice gimmick, and it was getting over. So, they put me on their cards. I think Flying Kid Ichihara, somebody got hurt, and they called. They need somebody right away, and they're like, "Can you come?" Sure. And then I just...
Was that the American Ninja gimmick?
Yes. Absolutely.
It's a simple gimmick. Just, just go in and do your thing, and this is your gimmick. This is your story. You're an American Ninja.
Yeah. Well, how it happened is actually traveling to Japan is very tricky, so you got to be there kind of early. You got to make sure. And because I didn't read Japanese, getting through the train stations and everything, I always left early, made sure I didn't mess up. And you can find the building, for gosh sakes, and do all that. And one day we were there, and it's a few hours early. We're doing a charity show, actually. And one of the guys had some nunchucks, and he was in the dressing room, and man, we're bored. So I pick him up, and I'm doing 2 pair at one time. And then I said, now the guys are watching, so I'm just playing with everybody in the dressing room, and pointing at my gym bag, and I got a bandana and put it around my eyes. So I did them blindfolded. And just as I stopped, I caught both pair, I got them in my hands. I'm bowing to everybody, just cutting up, and I feel this tap on my shoulder. And I turn around, it's Yatsu. This guy's 6'4", 265 pound, 2-time national champion Olympics. Yeah, so Yatsu walked me out of the dressing room, and nobody's in the building yet, so we're just walking kind of around the arena. And he looked at me, and Yatsu's English wasn't great, and obviously my Japanese wasn't great either. And he just said, "Image change." I'm like, "Image change? Oh, image change." He said, "Next show, bring martial arts uniform and a mask." I said, "Okay." He said, "Do you have he didn't say nunchucks, he just kind of did his hand like this. And I said, yeah, sure. And when I got there, I didn't even know where my name was on the card because they didn't tell me what I was called, but it was the American Ninja. And that was my breakthrough in Japan, because prior to that I was a heel, but because I was young and didn't, look like the stereotypical American heel, really big, really rough and tough, scarred up, I was kind of a young guy, thinner, and, the okay heel in Japan, I was, thought I did a good job as a heel in the States, much better. But once I became the American Ninja, I went from lower middle to tucked right up under the main event and the semi-main for the rest of my time. It was great. No politics for me. Nobody in the dressing room was jealous. Look, if you wrestled the American Ninja, unless you were a star or they were making you a star, yes, you were going to lose. I wasn't going to beat the top guys, but I knew where my place was. So there's no politics for me. There's nobody getting jealous about anything. Look, I knew I was going over. You're getting plenty of the match because I'm still getting my hand raised. And they treated me really good. Yoshika Yatsu is one of the men that I truly have an enormous amount of respect for. He's an honest man. He never once tried to short me on anything, no money, travel, nothing. He was good to me. He treated me like one of the family, so to speak. Even though there was the language barrier, I knew after dinner, he was going to grab me around the neck and give me a big hug before. And just what a guy. I could say thank you 1,000 times and it wouldn't even begin to touch the surface of how much I appreciated what he taught me about wrestling in Japan, because it's a different style and it's a different way, and it's a different way to get over. So basically Yatsu took me from a guy who knew how to, let's just say, do the moves, to a guy who knew how to get over with the Japanese crowd. And for that, I will be eternally grateful. And for the time that I got to spend wrestling in Japan, amazing.
Okay, now you have all this wrestling experience and knowledge, and now you bring it to Bahrain. Prior to talking with you today, I didn't know how did you get to meet with the KPW guys and how did you reach out to them. So that's a very interesting story. I'd like you to tell that first.
Well, when I found out we were coming to Bahrain, I have a family, so we were coming to Bahrain. I did what any good, curious person would do. I've been to Bahrain before, and I want to find something to do. I'm going to be living here for a while. So I just, pro wrestling, Bahrain. Click. On Google. KPW. Click. I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Got it. Right one.
So this was the last year, 2020?
Year before. 2019.
Oh, so the show haven't been done yet?
No,
already.
I haven't done the Mercado show. And so what I did is I said, hey guys, I'm coming to Bahrain. This is what I can do. And I wasn't trying to brag or anything, but I've promoted shows. I've helped write television before. Not for Bill Watts or anybody like that. Smaller level. I wish I was as talented as him. But so I'd worked behind the scenes. I'd worked as a trainer for many years, and that's really what I like to do the most. If I could have ever gotten a job in the 80s that was made me a pro wrestling trainer until I could retire, I would have never left it. As long as I could have fed my family. Really love that end of the business. But so I let them know that, you know, I'd been around wrestling. I'd wrestled in the U.S. and been to U.S., Australia, Europe, and then a long time in Japan. And email, send. Well, they sent me one back saying, hey, you know, we're just a startup. We don't have any money to pay you or anything. And I was like, I get it. You guys are starting out, and why don't we just try to see what we can do together and make this thing grow?
Because from my end, like, I try to help. I help KPW with anything they need, right? So at the beginning, like, we needed sponsors, to be honest, for even before the show. Just people don't get it. So that's why it was important to do the show, so people could see this has potential. And the show was for free. Like,
yeah,
we didn't charge anybody. It was a very simple show, very basic show. And like I told you, the reaction, I was going through the crowd and just listening to it, eavesdropping, basically, what people were saying. And what I heard was very interesting. So we can definitely capitalize on that. And now with a proper trainer, doing proper training with the guys, working with them one-to-one, and there's going to be something big soon.
I definitely think so. And the unique thing about these guys is, and I've been around a lot of wrestlers in my day, and I've been in a lot of wrestling gyms, and I've worked with the guys who I thought could be really big stars, and then I've worked with guys who I can tell you the owner of the gym was taking their money because they were never going to make it. What I got here is a group of guys that are extremely creative with their characters, with their move sets. We've got a variety of different types of athletes. They work hard, and I think they all have potential to be very, very good professional wrestlers. Look, a couple of them are already there, and I watch these guys grow. I wish you guys could see what I see in the gym. Man, they just absorb like a sponge. And you might have a couple of breakout stars that leave Bahrain and go on tour.
Hopefully, that's what we're working for here.
But the other thing is, the Bahraini kids and the Bahraini guys here, you might have some homegrown heroes. And when I was a kid growing up, you know, my heroes were all homegrown. And, you know, I got to imagine after watching Wrestling 2 and Tommy Rich and all these guys and Bob Armstrong, I got to be in the ring with Bob Armstrong, with Wrestling 2, with Tommy Rich. I mean, that's a childhood dream come true. And hopefully for these guys, we can do that. And maybe we can get these kids up and moving. You know, we have a problem in the States where our children don't exercise enough. And I think that's not just unique to the U.S. Maybe we can get the kids interested in moving around. But I just look forward to seeing where these guys go next. Like I said, I got some that are just naturals. They would... Right now, I can tell you, I got at least 5 guys in the territory days would have made it.
Whoa, that's
guaranteed.
Like the best compliment you could give a wrestler.
Guaranteed. They would have, in the territory days, they would have been sought after.
That's the thing. I'm really interested to come and see the guys because I haven't seen them wrestle since the show in January 2020. I used to go and check them out and stuff, but now I want to see the progress. And the other day, Zabari told me, by the way, Glenn told us to study MidSouth match, I think a tag match. And I'm like, okay, he's doing things right.
Yeah. Well, they're just, the MidSouth was just, you know, again, great talent and so well done. I mean, imagine cutting on the television and getting to watch Terry Gordy and Dr. Death Steve Williams go at it for the MidSouth, at the time, the UWF Heavyweight Championship match on television for free. That was like an Omni show thing for us in Georgia. It's on television. We're like, whoa. But yeah, I do try to encourage the guys to watch some of the old seasoned pros and how they did things. And I have a philosophy. I think the guys are okay with it. I bring back things that pro wrestlers used to do, and we try to put a little modern spin on it and we'll see how it works in front of the crowd. So we got some moves here you guys haven't seen before.
Oh, that's what I like.
In a long time. And don't be disappointed. We're not jumping off the building and doing flips, man. We're doing professional wrestling. And I think the crowd's gonna like it. I've got a background, I've done a lot of submission wrestling and stuff, so they have some pretty good, you know, they got a pretty good selection of catch moves in their repertoires.
So how long has it been since you last trained somebody until you came here? You said you trained a few people before.
Oh yeah, well I worked. I started training guys probably before I should have, but by
That's how it is.
1985, 6, I'd not been in the business nearly long enough. My first student that I ever worked with was a guy named Steve Lawler. They called him the Brawler, and Steve trained Buff Bagwell and Disco Inferno.
Whoa, Disco Inferno. We got a Disco Inferno shout out in this video. That's great. By the way, you have no idea how the Disco Inferno was over here.
Really?
For some reason, he resonated with people over here.
Yeah.
Like in the 2000s when, wrestling was kind of going down here, between the people, like I continued watching. But after WrestleMania 17, I would say, and after WCW stopped, I didn't used to watch WCW. We didn't have the channels and the cables to watch it, but some people did. So in school, when I talked to people, oh, I still watch wrestling. Oh, you still watch that stuff? Oh, is the Disco Inferno still wrestling? Like at least 6 out of 10 people that I'll talk wrestling to, they'll do, oh, is the Disco Inferno still wrestling? And they'll do the disco. So disco is over here.
Don't think he wrestles anymore, but I will tell you, I thought he was a unique talent and a unique character. And when you listen to him talk, because he does quite a bit of podcasting and stuff.
Yeah,
really intelligent guy.
Very and by the way, I think he's very happy right now because one of his students just won the NXT title.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What's his name?
Awesome.
Cross. What's his name? I don't watch NXT, so I don't know.
I'm with you.
Yeah, he defeated Finn Balor. It's last night.
Oh, love Finn Balor.
Yeah.
The guy's a worker.
So, a disco shout out.
Yeah, definitely. Come on. These are names you're not going to hear every day.
Something we talked about before the interview, and you told me something, and I'm like, this is a message to the guys at KPW. When Glenn came over here today, the first thing he showed me was his wrestling books, and he said, if you need any book to read, go ahead. I'm going to let you borrow it. And he said, none of you took a book. What the hell? He's got the hook over here, the hooker, sorry. One of the best, greatest wrestling books that everybody recommends, all the guys in the business. So tell the guys at KPW and any future wrestlers or aspiring wrestlers in the region and Bahrain why you should read the history of pro wrestling, not just watch.
Well, the thing is, if you don't understand where the business was and where it is now, you don't understand how those guys paved that road for you to get there in that ring.
WWE didn't invent wrestling.
Yes, Vince McMahon didn't invent wrestling. He stole television time from other promoters and made it national. But people don't realize when you're calling somebody, and this is not a knock on this guy, but when somebody tells me that Kenny Omega is the greatest living wrestler of all time and the best performer in the history of the business, I simply say, Oates held the world title for 10 years, 3 months, and 9 days over 4 title runs. 10 years, 3 months, 9 days. Now that's not when one company had a world title. That was when the NWA was a conglomerate of promoters from all over the world. And the title holder was chosen by that group of men. Those promoters got together at an annual convention and they decided who was going to be the champion for that next year. Now, Oates wrestled over 7,000 matches. He wrestled in darn near every country on the planet. And this was back when guys, the champion typically went for a very long match, 45 hour, 90 minutes, every night. 6-7 nights a week. So when somebody says, this guy X, I'm not going to use names now because I don't want to insult anybody, but this guy's the greatest wrestler ever. This guy's the greatest wrestler ever. That's your opinion, but stack up the resumes. Get back to me when they got 7,000 matches and the entire industry respected them enough to consider them the top guy for a decade. And the other thing is you learn a lot about what guys did to get to their position in the business and how they overcame adversity. People might not realize Ric Flair broke his back in a plane crash. Harley Race had at least 3 car accidents that would have killed a mere mortal. He's a superhuman. He was driving all 3 times too, by the way. Just thought I'd mention that. Be careful when you're on the road. Some of these guys scratched and clawed their way for years on the undercard, and then boom, something happened, and they got it, and they got in there. And there's lessons to be learned from all of them, because they all had the great pro wrestlers from my era and before were great storytellers in the ring. And that's what the guys today, the young guys, are missing. They can't tell a story. They think that a pro wrestling match is like a drag race, that as soon as the light turns green, you stomp on the gas pedal and you run full speed until it's time to go home. And it just doesn't work. It makes for a lot of sloppy wrestling, a lot of stuff that doesn't look, for lack of a better way, a wrestling match is supposed to simulate combat. Look, if you climb up to the top of a ring and try to jump off on me, and we're in a contest to see who can whip who, I'm simply going to step to the left or the right, and when you land, I'm going to start putting the boots to you. That's what's really going to happen. So the guys from the old days kind of understood that, and they kept it real looking. And you can always, even if you watch some of the guys who say, well, he was kind of boring to me, pick up on the little details. When you've been around wrestling a little while, you'll know what I'm talking about. And you pick up on those small details that guys do, and you go, that was pretty slick. That was pretty smart.
For a boring guy.
Yeah, for an old boring guy. And it's not that I have anything against high flyers. Let's take for example, if you want to see matches that I would recommend to anybody who's young, athletic, and starting a professional wrestling career, watch Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid back in the early 80s. Those matches are still talked about today, and there's a reason. And they did high flying, but they did it at the right time in the match. And they did it in a way that didn't look planned, where you're standing there waiting for somebody to jump on you. It was put in the right spots, and they were just, both of those guys were fantastic. And I wish guys would, kind of pick up on that a little bit. All young pro wrestlers.
So, yeah, aspiring wrestlers, read before you get to the ring. That's a very important part of the training. And speaking of training, like, you have someone like Zubari who trained in the US,
mm-hmm.
and you have the others over here who trained themselves, let's say. Are there any subtle differences between how, like, Zubari picks up things and the others picks up things?
Well, definitely.
No names.
No. Well, some of it has to do with athletic backgrounds and kind of how they understand.
Like over here, like I mentioned a million times, no foundation for wrestling, no history of wrestling. So Zubari is really the first Bahrain wrestler.
And great is appropriate. He's a very good wrestler who's going to be a great wrestler.
But do you see differences in, like, when you're training them? Of course, everybody picks up things differently, but
yeah. Well, he's a little bit more familiar with the details of a lot of the moves, but all of the guys pick up so quick. It's an amazing bunch of guys. I don't want to give one a shout out because I'm afraid if I don't mention every single one of them, I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings. But what I will tell you is that every single person there, when they come to the gym, they work hard. They're smart about their training. We've got guys that when they first came weren't doing as well training because they just weren't. They hadn't done anything athletic before. And now the other guys have helped and pushed them up, and their athleticism as it's come up, their wrestling's just improving leaps and bounds. And they're all so creative with their characters. I mean, we've got an array of guys that just, when you look at our poster, man, it's something else. And I've got some guys that are just naturals. So it's amazing. And like I said, Zubari's going to be a heck of a coach one day too.
That's good to hear. We need coaches.
He's going to be, again, when I said there's some guys that would make it in the territorial days, he would definitely be around.
Heard that, Zubari. Okay, let's talk about the future. We are 1 month removed from things opening up in Bahrain on a small scale, but public events, I would assume, would follow very soon after that. So, what is the future for KPW? Are the guys ready to give a better show than the last one?
think they are, and I don't want it to sound like it's because of me. They've got more ring time now, and that always makes a difference. And the other thing that makes a difference is, some of the guys that was their first time in front of a crowd more than of just a few dozen people, and they felt the difference in the energy level and everything. So I think the next time they're just going to be that much more excited to be out there, and they're going to be that much prepared, because every match in front of a larger crowd is a learning experience. So I think now that a lot of them will have that nervousness. I'm going to tell you, first time you walk up and I'll never forget. I've been around business a long time, and we were in Tokyo Dome in 1994, and we walked out and looked, and that was bigger on big screen TV than it was in real life. And I'm like, oh. And then I got nervous, and I'm like, man, I ain't been nervous in 12 years, 15 years. What's going on here? And then I'm looking around, and there's 66,000 people in that building. So, I wasn't quite prepared for the magnitude of that event. And so first time, second time, third time in front of these crowds, they're going to start to get more comfortable. They're going to learn to play off the crowd, and also a good student and a good wrestler is going to learn by listening to the crowd respond to what they do.
Like how was eavesdropping during the last event? Yeah,
so I think they're going to be really good, and I think the fans are going to enjoy it, and I think they're just going to keep getting better. There's no downside with this crew. They're hungry, and when you're hungry, you eat.
That's very great. I know the guys, and they're all passionate about wrestling and really want to do it. I don't see any one of them just doing it for for laughs, or hey, it's just something to do for now. And would you say next 5 years we can fit an arena or a small indoor stadium?
Definitely.
That's really good too.
Definitely. I think we can. I think we could. I don't have the channel now, but I used to have the Bahraini Sports channel. And when I saw KPW and I'd seen the sports channel when I first got here, I'm like, we belong there. Because the sports they had on there, and I'm not knocking them, they just weren't drawing very many people. It was almost empty arena sports that's on primetime television. I'm like, oh, give us a TV studio, give us some lighting. We can entertain these people right there on that channel, and it would be awesome. But as long as the fans are going to support us, there's no downside. This thing could just grow.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was shocked at the show. I thought it was just going to be guys my age, younger teenagers, guys. I'm specifying guys, men, boys, at the crowd and wrestling fans. But no, I was seeing families and a parent dragging their kids, a kid dragging the parents. And all sorts of people. It was very interesting to see that the crowd was very mixed. It wasn't just one group of people.
And that's the thing I love about the group of guys we have, is that they can all draw a different demographic because of the wide variety of characters. I mean, they love Jabbar, the wild man. I was shocked. I was shocked. Like, the reaction for Jabbar was just amazing. In Japan, he would have parted the Red Sea and they would have ran from him. They would have, because they used to run from Leatherface and they used to run from Bruiser Brody. And he's got that same vibe that those guys did. And but instead they embraced him, and he's going to entertain people for years to come. Then we've got our guys that you've got Madrix. Wow, what a creative and entertaining guy. You've got the Black Sheep. What an athlete. Fantastic. Rudy Royale. You may not like him, but I'm going to tell you something, folks. Watch him in his alliance, because they are good and they're talented. Oh, give him a mic and he's gonna get you. And then the guys who haven't been on shows yet that are working with us are looking good. And you can't forget Hamed the Lion. Here we've got this big, strong powerlifter that's an entertaining guy, and man, he could, when he slams you, you hear it. The whole arena is going to hear the vibe from the ring. So, like I said, no downside with this crew. This is fun for me. Come on, look, I'm past the age of getting out there and entertaining too much. Unfortunately, the sand in the hourglass that was my wrestling career is probably completely gone. But
This is a whole new chapter.
I'm just going to enjoy watching these guys, and I'm trying to make sure I did not leave it. Combat. Oh my gosh. Well, I did say the Royal Alliance. Combat is just that guy's an athlete, and he's going to be one heck of a heel that people are going to hate, and then like I said, man, what a crew! I'm blessed. Tigray, our masked tiger, athletic,
Yeah,
hard hitter, fast, strong, everything.
Yeah, I really hope they grow as wrestlers, and the crew itself grows. More numbers means more shows, means more matches you can do. So, speaking of the future of Bahrain, this is the future of Bahrain and KPW. But what about the region? Can you see Bahrain becoming the wrestling hub of the region?
I don't see why not. You know what would be? I tell you what would be a dream come true for me to get to watch. Is we've got other promotions around the Middle East. If these guys, would watch us and say, hey, home grow your wrestlers, take care of your crew, and groom and invest time in these guys, and this could almost be like the old territory days.
Yeah.
Where we could send our champion there, and they could send their champion to us. Yeah,
like Kuwait, Saudi, and Qatar, UAE is just like what? 3-4 hours,
sure.
5 hours drive max. Yeah. 1 hour by plane. That's nothing.
People fail to realize back in the territory days, the Georgia Championship Wrestling office was in Atlanta. Okay, Continental Championship Wrestling's head office was, for a long time it was Pensacola, but TV was Birmingham. Birmingham and Atlanta, 120 miles apart. Then you got 7 hours. 6-7 hours, you're down in Tampa. Less time to that to get to Jerry Lawler's territory up in Tennessee. And those guys all work together. But I think we're right now. I think we're pointing the right direction, and I think we're going to be the top group very quickly.
That's very good to hear. That's what I wanted always, Bahrain to be the wrestling hub, because out of the GCC, there are a lot of wrestling fans, but the most, I don't want to say rabid, but very passionate wrestling fans, they were all in Bahrain. Not just because I lived here. I've talked to a lot of Saudi fans, Kuwaiti fans, Emirati fans. They love it, but it's not like the people I meet here and talk about it, So why not a wrestling hub in Bahrain? And like you said, they grow their promotions, we grow our promotions, send our guys there, they send their guys here. It's how it should work, to be honest.
That was the formula for decades. And it worked in the U.S. And, it just made wrestling more fun back then because, to be quite honest, and it's not a knock on the wrestlers themselves, but when you hear about a guy being on WWE television for 25 years, there was probably only a few of those years where you guys really wanted to see that man. And in the territory days, they traded talent. Like Bill Watts was trying to figure out, I've got all these big, strong guys. I've got some of the toughest men in the industry, but Tennessee draws all the girls' fans. All the females come to see their shows. Why is that? Well, Bill, it was because they had the Rock and Roll Express and they had the Fantastics and they had Tommy Rich. All young, handsome baby faces that the girls loved.
And by the way, I loved how he pronounced Tennessee. Now I feel like I've been pronouncing it wrong all my life.
I still got that southern accent. I hadn't lived in the South in a long time. But
hey, you can take the boy out of the South, but you can't take the South out of the boy.
Yeah, they always know where I'm from. Anywhere else I go in the world. Well, in foreign countries, they'll either think South or Texas. Might be the boots, I don't know. But I get accused of being a Texan quite a bit as well.
Mr. Glen Holbrook, thank you for being with me today and talking with me. I just learned so much just talking to you, and we've talked a lot beforehand, but really, it's a blessing that you're here in Bahrain training the first crop of wrestlers in Bahrain, and we should start something really nice with KPW, I feel.
Well, thank you, and like I said, to me it's been a blessing because now I have a bunch of young guys that I'm working out with, and I think it's going to helped push me to get that fitness level back where it should be. I got lazy and wasn't doing a lot, and these guys are they're helping me out a little bit too. So it's kind of a win-win for both of us. And like I said, my time in the ring's coming to an end, and I'm only going to be able to train guys, so many more years. But I think I'm going to be left with a group that I can watch for the rest of my life. So I'll always have a connection to wrestling and forever for me. And I look forward to that. And I'm glad it's here because the fans that we talk to are great, and the people we work with, which makes all the difference in the world. All of them are great guys, and they're working hard so they can entertain everyone here in Bahrain. And I look forward to hearing about, watching, reading their many successes years after I'm gone from here. I want to be able to tell my cable subscriber, hey, if you can't get me KPW, I'm changing.
Oh, that's really good. And yeah, I'm really happy that you're giving your knowledge and experience to these guys into a place where there's no wrestling. So this is like a baby, like a project. This is your baby right now, KPW and the Bahraini territory. Because I can't say that a lot of people tried to start wrestling. This is literally the first group of people who really wanted to start wrestling in Bahrain. So this is something completely new, and I can't wait to see the end results of the guys you train, the shows you're going to run in the near future, and where it goes from here.
And it's such a team effort by every single member. You got to remember, the guy who founded this and started Al Muhammad he's got a great mind for the business. If he was 25, 35 years older and an American, he would have probably run a territory in the States somewhere. It's just wrong country, wrong decades. He's got a great mind for the business, and I think he's going to keep guys on the focus. And like I said, I got Zabari and a couple of other guys that are going to make great trainers, and they all have great ideas for their matches. They're all creative. It's just, to me, it's what a way to go out. I came in and when I came into wrestling, I got to get in the ring with some of my childhood heroes, and that was the greatest thing. One of my greatest nights ever was a small arena, and my grandfather, who's a huge wrestling fan, got to come that night. He didn't get to get out much.
Oh.
And the smile on his face was like somebody putting the NWA title around your waist.
Oh.
And if these guys get an opportunity for one night like that, wow, it'll be worth it. It will be worth it. It'll be something else.
Yeah, this video is as much as for the people watching as for KPW, the roster, the wrestlers over there, and everybody behind the scenes. There are a few people behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
And I do help KPW with anything. If I have the time, I'll do anything they ask me to do. And that's the one thing I want to do. Like you said, wrong decade, wrong country. Yeah, but all these guys, this is not the first time they tried to start wrestling over here. We've all, me, my brother, and these guys by themselves, but now that they're all in one group, like you said, it's a team effort.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we could come up with something, because this is what I told them when I first started going with them. And I used to go not to wrestle. I go to set the ring. I go to help them with anything, media, whatever. So I tell them, I don't care if I never get in the ring or wrestle or do anything. I don't want to do that. But tomorrow when my kid, if he ever gets into wrestling and likes it and says, oh, I want to be a wrestler, I want there to be a place where he could go in his hometown. He doesn't have to travel anywhere. Because that's what I always wanted when I was a kid. I couldn't try it. I couldn't go anywhere. Yeah. Not even for a week, and get hurt and then say, no, I don't want to do that anymore. So that's a great place to stop it. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. That was awesome.
It's been a privilege.